Hey friends, welcome to Finlyn Media. It's no secret that airlines try to get passengers to spend more money. Sometimes the trade-off, like extra legroom, is worth paying a premium for. But what happens when an airline doesn't actually fulfill its promise? But this does bring up a good question, given that involuntary bumping happens from time to time. Is it possible to be bumped from first class to economy, in other words, downgraded, despite paying for your seat? As it turns out, yes, it's possible and it might happen to you. Over on the Flyer Talk forums, one traveler wrote about his experience being bumped from first class, on 2 different Alaska Airlines flights. In both instances, the airline attributed his bumping to an error. He writes, "At the gate, I was called up last minute and told I'd been bumped back to coach, and we are sorry we didn't see the error sooner. I'm suspicious that Alaska is simply overselling on purpose to someone, paying more than me at a later date." Unfortunately, being downgraded from first class can happen for any number of reasons, and is ultimately at the sole discretion of the airline. Your designated seat assignment is never a guarantee, no matter how much you spend. The most common reason you might anticipate being downgraded is if your aircraft changes from one with more first class or business seats to one with less. Now, the airline must downgrade some passengers, assuming the first class and business sections were fully occupied to begin with. Airlines have different ways of dealing with downgraded passengers. The rules that apply are the Conditions of Carriage, which is the document that describes your rights and obligations according to the airline, and any government regulations. Under its Conditions of Carriage, an airline is required to get you from point A to point B, and that's about it. Most airlines don't even mention the topic of downgrades in their Conditions of Carriage. The least worst place to suffer a downgrade is in the European Union, where regulations require airlines to reimburse between 30 and 75% of the ticket price, depending on flight length. In the rest of the world, no such law exists. There's a catch. If you're moved from business to economy, the refund will probably be the difference between the fare paid for the business class seat and the full flexible economy fare. This is the most expensive economy class fare you can buy, which means the airline owes you not that much. Before we look further, if you are watching my video for the first time, please do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell button for notifications. Let's continue on to the video. If you do end up getting downgraded, you are entitled to a refund. Your rights to a refund may also be spelled out in your airline's contract of carriage. For example, according to Qantas seat selection conditions, if your seat is changed by Qantas due to a flight disruption, or operational, safety or security reasons, you can apply for a refund after departure. But even if you might be entitled to a refund, that doesn't mean it's a fair one. While you might expect a refund in the form of the price of the upgrade you purchased, minus the fare for the seat you ended up with, it's slightly more complicated than that. Airlines mark up the price of the seat you end up with by calculating its fare, based on how much you would have paid had you bought the seat that day, which would probably be really expensive, and means you might be entitled to nothing if that seat is now more expensive than your original upgrade. Ridiculous, right? Still, it's worth a shot to try and get a refund, anyway. You should look up your airline's contract of carriage for any language that pertains to downgrades, and provide that to the airline by email or phone. I would recommend seeing if you can find the cost difference between the economy and business class flight difference on the day you booked it, and request that difference as a refund. You may be offered a cash voucher, or a points top-up, as a gesture of goodwill which you can use to pay for your next flight with the airline. Here's where you might be able to negotiate a better deal, but you're not in a strong position. The airline makes its own rules and they hold all the cards. Acceptance of whatever the airline is offering, including the seat reallocation, is taken to mean that you've copped the downgrade, end of story. You can refuse of course, and there might be a chance of a seat in the class you've paid for on a later flight. But you don't have a lot of leverage. From the moment you hear the word downgraded, or reassigned, you're going to have to suck it up, work your way through the 5 stages of grief and get to acceptance as quickly as possible. Most business class travelers buckle quickly, and take what fate has handed them with varying degrees of grace. Some will subsequently take to social media to bleat the injustice, and call upon heaven to fill the offending airline's planes with biting insects and wild animals, but it's futile. The airline really doesn't care. In other words, never take no for an answer. You could avoid these inconveniences by sticking to one airline as far as possible, and use their affiliated credit cards to rack up yet more points. Business class seats are more heavily booked on certain days, depending on where you're heading, and this puts pressure on seat, particularly if you've booked using reward points. Try for a quieter day. If you like this video, please share it with your friends and family. Don't forget to subscribe this channel, and hit the bell button, in order to be notified as soon as I post a video. Thanks for watching, and see you till next time.